Hello everybody, today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a custom asset master material so that you can easily apply the material to meshes that you import. So this is going to be really helpful, and you only have to do the work once, because after you make it once you can just use material instances. As you can see here, you can create a material instance of your master material, and then all you have to do is just swap out textures, and then you can apply it to any mesh that you might import. And the meshes that you import are already going to be there. The UVs will already be set to match my setup here. So in order to actually use the material properly, you will need to only use it on assets that are downloaded from my website, because it is a specific format that is used. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started with actually creating the master asset now, or the master material. So as you can see here, I have a little demo on this authority wall, and I'll show you guys how to make that. But this is what will be coming out later today as well, if I can get that all out for you guys in time. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to do is open up your content browser, right click, and then go to where it says material, and then click on material, and then it's going to create a new material for you. Now I named this M for material master asset, but I can't name it exactly the same, but name it something like that. So you guys are going to want to, I should have said this before, but this is very, very important. If you want your scripts to work right, to actually spawn in the custom props correctly, then you will need to name everything exactly like I do. So you're gonna want to name your master asset M underscore master underscore asset, just like this, because this is what I'll actually put in the scripts, and this is what you have to put in. Otherwise, it won't, UEFN won't know what material you're trying to reference, and it won't load it incorrectly. So make sure you name it exactly like I do. So then you can click on this, and you're going to open it up in a separate tab here. So the first thing we need to do is add in texture parameters. So if you right click and click texture, you type in texture, you're going to see texture sample parameter 2D. This is what we want. Alright, and then you're just going to have one for now, and you see where it says in the details panel on the left hand side, parameter name, change this to texture 01 diffuse. Okay, and then you can go ahead and duplicate that and create another one, and then name this one texture 01 normal, and then duplicate that, and this is going to be texture 01 specular. Okay, and when you have those good, you're going to want to go to the normal map here, and you're going to want to change this default texture to this amber frost ceiling N, because otherwise it's going to freak out, because that's not the one that was there before. It's not a normal map. But then on your texture 01 normal texture parameter, go to the arrow here, and then you're going to change the sampler type from color to normal. Okay, and this is what's going to give it the identity of a normal map. So that's why we have to change that. Alright, then you can put that back once you've changed those settings. And now the nice thing is we're going to copy and paste these three more times, but the thing is we're not going to have to actually change like the normal map settings, because we've already done that. So then I'm going to select all of these by left click mouse drag, and then I'm going to press Control D to duplicate them. Okay, and then you're going to notice it's going to create another set here. That's what we want. So I'm actually going to move the first set over here, and then we'll do this kind of like this. It doesn't matter exactly how you set it up, but anyways, so we go to texture 01 diffuse. This is the copy now, right? So we already had those. Leave those the same. We made a copy. So change this one to texture 02 diffuse. Change this one to texture 02 normal. and change this one to texture 02 specular. Okay. All right. Then you can go ahead and select those again, Control D, and it will give us another set here. And then you're probably getting the idea. Change this one to texture 03 diffuse. This one becomes texture 03 normal. And then this one becomes texture 03 specular. Okay. So then I'm going to move this over a little bit. Then I'm going to do it one more time. Control D. And this is going to be for texture 4. Now, this is only going to support 4 texture blends because most Fortnite assets, if not all, don't use more than 4 textures. So, or 4 different texture sets. So, it isn't like you don't need to add more than 4. You do need 4, you just don't need to add more than 4. Alright, so the next step is hooking all of these up to the correct UV map. So the thing that we're going to do now is right click and you're going to enter in texture coordinates. So texture coordinate is what we want here, and we're actually going to put 2 of them in. So press Control D to make a copy, and now you're going to want to take the first texture coordinate that's at coordinate index 0 and hook that up to your UVs on all of these texture parameters, okay? So when it says 0, texture coordinate 0, hook that up to all of your UVs, or all of the UVs on all the assets, sorry. So just drag it to every single texture parameter. And why we're doing this is because otherwise our textures won't show up properly, because the meshes have 2 different UV maps built into them. One is for the masks and the other is for the textures. So that's why we need to hook up the right UV map to each texture. Okay? So next step, we're going to use a lerp, or a linear interpolate. So search up linear interpolate, and then these diffuse textures are going to, you're going to put texture 01 diffuse RGB into lerp A, okay? And then you're going to put texture 02 diffuse into lerp B. And then our alpha, we have to make yet. So we haven't actually made the parameter for the alpha yet. So what you're going to do is add another texture parameter. I'm just going to press Control D on this one. And then I'm going to name this to texture 02 mask. And what this is going to be is this is going to be an image that tells UEFN where to show each texture on the actual mesh. So this RGB value is going to go to the alpha here, okay? And so that is the first set done for the lerp. So then you're going to want to duplicate your lerp, and then the output from this first lerp goes into A of the second one, and then you have your next diffuse. So the RGB diffuse of our texture 3 will go into B, and then duplicate your texture 02 mask, name it texture 03 mask, and then this RGB output is going to go into the alpha of that second lerp. Okay, so I really hope this isn't too confusing so far. I hope you guys are following. So we've got 2 lerps. If you need to look back at the video, or slow it down or something, feel free to do that. Okay, so then go to this lerp, duplicate it, and then the output from this lerp will go into the A of the next one. And then this time you're going to go to your texture 4 diffuse. So bring the RGB up to texture to B slot in the lerp. And then go ahead and create another texture parameter and name it texture 04 mask. And then put that RGB into the alpha there, okay? So now what we have here is a setup for the base color of our material. So what we want to do now is I like to add in a color multiply in case I want to make something darker. Like for the authority, it was a little bit useful for when I wanted to make the trim darker from the agency texture. So what I would usually do is I would take the texture So we would actually take the texture diffuse here, and then before putting it into the lerp at position B, you would add a vector 3. So go to vector, constant vector 3. All right, and then you're going to want to right click and convert to parameter. All right, so now we have a color parameter. So constant vector 3, right click, convert to parameter. And then you can put this into a multiply node. So we're going to go to multiply. And then you're going to want to hook up the RGB. So first destroy this link that between the RGB on texture 3 diffuse right now, and hook up the RGB from texture 3 to your A value of your multiply node, and then put this parameter into the B value, and then the multiply output is going to go to your B value. So what we're actually doing here is we're either darkening or lightening the base color here. So just for this texture 3 diffuse, because we don't want to apply it to everything. So anything that you want to make darker or lighter, put into the texture 3 section as a texture 3 parameter. So the parameter name now, I'm going to name this base color multiply. Okay. And then parentheses texture 3. Alright. And then you're going to want to make sure that your default value is white. Otherwise, it's going to mess stuff up. If you don't want it to have... so make sure just the default is white. Alright. And then that should hook up to your lerp. Now our base color final lerp over here is finished. So we can drag this end to the base color of the master asset here, okay? And you're going to notice that it's going to start rendering some random texture. That's just because we're just making a base, and we're actually going to change the textures later. Alright, so now that you've done the first one, now we're going to do it for the normals. So the normals are going to be very, very similar. The only thing that is going to be different is the speculars. The normals are going to be pretty much exactly the same as the diffuse. So you're just going to want to make your lerps. So duplicate this lerp. Alright. And then the RGB of your texture 01 normal is going to go into lerp A. And then the RGB of your texture 02 normal is going to go to lerp B. And then your alpha is going to be the same thing as the texture 02 mask. So this texture 02 mask is going to go into your alpha here. So the alpha between your texture 01 and your texture 02 is going to be the same texture 02 mask from before. It's the same mask. Alright, so now we can duplicate our lerp again. The output from the first lerp goes into A. Then you take the RGB of texture 03 normal, put that into B, and then your texture 03 mask RGB is what's going to go into the alpha here, okay? Alright, so then duplicate your lerp once again. The output goes to A, texture 04 normal RGB goes to B, and then your texture 04 mask RGB goes to your alpha, alright? And then that's it. That's all you need to do for your normals. So then take this output here, oops, and drag that into the normal slot for your master asset output, okay? So you're going to notice it's getting a little bit complicated here, but bear with me. We're actually not too far off from being done. So all we need to do now is duplicate our lerp again. Now for the specular is where it gets a little bit trickier because there's just so many nodes that we have to end up making. So, but you're going to want to go to your texture 02 specular here, connect the R value, not the RGB, connect the R value to your A. And then go to texture 03 specular, connect the R value to your B, and then your alpha is going to be, oh whoops, I'm sorry guys. Please ignore everything I just said. I did not mean to do that. Okay. Anyways, you're going to want to copy your lerp. So make sure you copy your lerp. So I'm going to press Control D and drag that down. Just ignore what I said. I'm sorry. and then go to texture 01 specular. Then take the R from texture 01 and put that into A. Then you can take the R from texture 02, put that into B. And then the texture 02 mask, RGB, is going to come down here to the alpha between those two. Then you can duplicate your lerp. Once again, the output goes to A. Your texture 03R goes to B. And then your texture 03 mask is going to go to the alpha, okay? So then duplicate lerp again. Your output goes to A. And then your R of your texture 4 specular goes to B. Alright, and then your alpha is your texture 04 mask, and that goes to your alpha, okay? So now we finished the lerps for the specular node. So now you're going to want to drag the output lerp over to your master asset and plug it into specular. So it should go into the specular tab here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna copy these three. I'm gonna just control click on all of these and then control D. That way we already have a nice lerp set up here, so I don't have to do the same thing. So now you're gonna want to take the G from your texture 01, plug that into A, and then take the G from your texture 02, plug that into B. And then same thing, your alpha is going to be your texture 02 mask. So our texture 02 mask is up here. So I'm going to drag that down, and that's going to be my alpha for my G. Okay, and then this lerp is going to have the G value from your texture 3 specular as B, and then the texture 3 mask RGB is going to be your alpha, so that's going to go there. Alright, and then your texture 4G sorry, that's not texture 4. Your texture 4G is going to go to B of this final lerp, and then your texture 4 mask is going to be the alpha. So here's our texture 4 mask RGB, that's going to go to the alpha here. And then you can drag this over to your main, and then put this as metallic, I'm pretty sure. If it is wrong, we can change it later, but I think it's supposed to go to metallic, or it'll go to roughness. I don't remember which channel is which, I'm going to be honest, but we can change it in a bit. Alright, then finally, copy your 3 lerp nodes once again, and this is the final set that we have to do. And then you can drag your B from your texture 01 into A of the first one. Your B of your texture 2 goes to B. And then your texture 2 mask, once again, is your alpha, okay? So let me drag that down then. And that's your alpha there. And then your texture 03 specular, B goes to the B. Alright, and then your alpha is your texture 3 mask. So texture 03 mask, drag that down here. That's your alpha. Alright, and then your texture 04 specular B is your B value here. And your alpha is a texture 4 mask. So drag the RGB down to the texture 4 mask, and that's your alpha, okay? So now this final lerp output is going to go to our roughness, okay? And now there is one last thing that we need to do, okay? And it's really easy. It's not super complicated with nodes. So you're going to notice that we have a remaining texture coordinate at the very start when we created those two. Change the second one, the duplicate, to coordinate index 1, okay? And then drag this over to all of your mask textures. So texture 02 mask UV is going to get that. Same thing, take coordinate 1, texture coordinate index 1, drag it over to your texture 03 mask and put the UV as that. Then do the same thing for texture 04 mask, only the masks, not all the other textures, and put the mask UV as the texture coordinate 01 over here, okay? So that is the final material setup here. So as you can see, this is looks pretty complex because it kind of is. There's a lot going on. So now let's go ahead and test it. So now that we've finished everything, you can go ahead and hit apply changes and then save.